Here's the strange truth nobody talks about. Despite no gym memberships or calorie trackers, despite primitive medicine, Australians in the 1950s were dramatically healthier than we are today. In 1980, only 10% of adults were obese. Today, it's over 25%. Back then, 60% had a healthy weight. Today, just 35%. So what were they doing right? The answer isn't complicated. It's embarrassing. Because everything that kept us healthy, we deliberately stopped doing. Here are 13 forgotten habits that made old Australia so much healthier than modern Australia. Before cars dominated every street, walking wasn't exercise. It was simply how you got around. Most families didn't own a car until the late 1950s. Even those who could afford one kept it for weekends and special occasions. The result? Walking became woven into daily life in ways we cannot imagine today. Children walked to school, mothers walked to the shops, fathers walked to work or to catch the tram. It wasn't a choice. It was just life. You needed bread, so you walked to the baker. You needed meat, so you walked to the butcher. You visited your sister on Sunday, so you walked across the suburb. The idea of driving 10 minutes to a gym to walk on a treadmill would have seemed genuinely insane. Here's what really shocks people. 40 years ago, 75% of Australian children walked or rode bikes to school. Today, those figures are completely reversed. Now 75% are driven, and the streets around schools are choked with traffic instead of filled with kids on foot. This wasn't about fitness. Nobody called it exercise, but the average person covered several kilometres daily without thinking twice. During Australia's cycling golden era in the 1950s and early 60s, bikes were as common as smartphones are today. Almost every home had several. Men cycled to work in suits and hats. Women cycled to shops in dresses. Kids cycled to school with bags strapped to their backs. E-bicycle was simply the most practical way to get places when you couldn't afford a car and the bus didn't go where you needed. A man cycling 10 kilometres to work and back burned serious calories without ever thinking about it. No special gear required, no planning needed. It was automatic daily exercise disguised as transport. Then something changed. As cars became affordable through the 1960s, cycling collapsed almost overnight. What replaced those thousands of daily pedal strokes? Sitting in traffic, sitting at work, sitting at home. The generation that cycled everywhere in ordinary clothes stayed thin. Their children, who drove everywhere in comfortable cars, did not. The bicycle didn't disappear because we found something better for our health. It disappeared because we found something easier. And easier, it turns out, made us sick. Until the 1950s, growing your own food wasn't a trendy hobby. It was completely normal. More than half of Australian households had vegetable gardens plus fruit trees. It was just what you did. During and after World War II, Victory Gardens meant self-sufficiency wasn't optional. The government actually encouraged everyone to dig up their lawns and plant vegetables. Every second person knew how to grow food. Backyards weren't for entertaining or installing pools. They were for production. Tomatoes, potatoes, silver beet, leeks, chocos, carrots, beans, pumpkins. If it could grow in Australian soil, it was probably in someone's backyard. This created two health benefits nobody planned for. First, constant physical activity. Digging, planting, weeding, watering, harvesting. Gardening is serious physical work, done daily, year-round. Second, maximum nutrition. Vegetables picked that morning and eaten that evening. No 3-week journey from another hemisphere. Just fresh, nutrient-dense food. Then suburbanization changed everything. As historian notes, low maintenance gardens became popular through the 1950s and 60s. Vegetable beds shrank, fruit trees disappeared, backyards shifted from sites of production to sites of consumption. Gardens became purely decorative. Today, having a vegetable garden makes you unusual. In 1945, not having one made you unusual. We traded nutrition and exercise for tidy lawns we pay someone else to mow. Walk through any Australian suburb in the 1940s and 50s, and you'd hear chickens. Many suburban homes kept them for eggs. Some kept rabbits for meat. This wasn't hobby farming, it was practical food production on a small scale. Keeping chickens meant daily physical work, feeding them morning and evening, cleaning the coop weekly, collecting eggs, hauling feed bags, building and maintaining structures, composting kitchen scraps to feed them, every single day, regardless of weather or mood. It's not just the exercise, though, it's the connection. These families understood where food came from because they raised it. Children learned that eggs didn't appear in cartons and meat didn't grow on plastic trays. This knowledge shaped how they valued and consumed food. When one butcher shop in Melbourne's Thornbury reported in 2009 that chicken feed sales had reached their highest level in 40 years, it made news. Why? Because for decades keeping chickens had virtually disappeared. It had become so unusual that a small revival was newsworthy. The physical work involved in keeping even a few chickens added up. Combined with the garden, shopping, and housework, suburban Australians were getting serious exercise without ever stepping foot in a gym. They weren't fitness enthusiasts, they were just feeding their families. Housework in the 1950s was genuinely hard physical labour. In the early part of the decade, only 10% of Australian households owned a refrigerator. By 1955, that number jumped to 73%, but everything else remained manual. No dishwashers, few vacuum cleaners, certainly no washing machines in most homes. Washing clothes meant filling tubs with hot water, scrubbing by hand, wringing out every piece, and hanging everything to dry. One load could take hours. Carpets weren't vacuumed, they were taken outside and beaten by hand. Floors were swept and mopped on hands and knees. Every dish was washed, dried, and put away manually after every meal. This wasn't just a bit of light tidying. The average Australian housewife was constantly moving, lifting, carrying, bending, scrubbing. Her entire day involved sustained physical effort that would exhaust most modern people. Today, housework takes a fraction of the time. We press buttons and machines do the work. Those hours of physical labour simply vanished. We gained convenience and free time. What did we lose? The incidental exercise that kept people naturally active and strong. Modern appliances are wonderful. Nobody wants to return to hand-scrubbing laundry. But we need to acknowledge what we traded. Effortless cleanliness for effortless calories burned. The housework itself kept people thin without them ever noticing. Before supermarkets, shopping was a daily expedition. Australia's first self-service stores didn't appear until the 1920s, and proper supermarkets didn't become common until the 1960s. Until then, you couldn't buy everything in one place. You had to visit multiple shops. Monday, you'd walk to the butcher for meat. Tuesday, the grocer for dry goods. Wednesday, the greengrocer for vegetables. Every trip meant walking there, carrying purchases home, then walking back out again. No driving to a massive shopping centre once a week. No trolleys full of groceries wheeled to the car. Here's what made this even more physical. Limited refrigeration meant you couldn't stock up. Food spoiled quickly. You bought what you needed for today, maybe tomorrow. This forced daily trips, daily walking, daily carrying of shopping bags, which is essentially resistance training you didn't choose. Each shop visit wasn't just about buying food either. It was social. You'd chat with the butcher, gossip with neighbours, stand in queues. More time on your feet, more incidental movement adding up throughout the week. When supermarkets arrived, everything changed. One trip, one location. Drive there, load the car, drive home. We called it convenience. And it was. But that convenience eliminated hours of weekly walking we didn't even realize we were doing. The shift happened so gradually that nobody noticed we'd stopped moving. Here's where Australian food history differs from Britain. Yes, Australians ate meat at nearly every meal in the 1940s and 50s. Bacon or sausages at breakfast, lamb stew for lunch, steak or chops for dinner. Meat was central to Australian identity and diet. But here's the crucial difference. Portions were smaller and carefully stretched. The famous Sunday roast was special precisely because meat was expensive. A leg of lamb fed the whole family because it was carved thinly at the table. The head of the household would slice it carefully, serving modest portions onto each plate. Vegetables, potatoes, pumpkin, peas, carrots, beans bulked out the meal. During the week, meat appeared in even smaller amounts. Casseroles stretched a bit of beef with loads of vegetables. Mince was extended with oats or breadcrumbs. Cheaper cuts like tripe and lamb's brains were common. Nothing was wasted. Bones made stock. Fat was saved and reused. Food shopping took 33% of the average family's income in the 1950s, compared to just 16% today. When meat costs that much relatively, you make it last. You don't pile your plate high. You certainly don't have seconds unless there's enough for everyone. The irony is perfect. They ate meat constantly but stayed thin. We eat meat constantly and don't. The difference? Portion sizes and what else was on the plate. There was no takeaway, no home-delivered pizza, no Uber Eats. KFC didn't arrive in Australia until the late 1960s, and it was the first chain. Before that, every single meal was cooked from raw ingredients at home. No exceptions. Dinner in an Australian home was predictable. Meat, potatoes, and 3 vegetables. That's it. No elaborate sauces, no exotic spices, no variety for variety's sake. Pasta wasn't eaten. Curry was a surname. Rice appeared only in puddings. The same meals rotated weekly. Monday's leftover roast became Tuesday's cold meat. Wednesday might be sausages. Thursday, chops. Dessert was equally simple. Stewed fruit with custard, bread and butter pudding, junket, blancmange, or tinned peaches. Nothing fancy, nothing complicated, just basic filling food. Preparing these meals took hours, peeling vegetables, preparing meat, cooking everything from scratch. But the simplicity meant lower calorie density. No hidden sugars, no processed ingredients, no manufactured flavors. Designed to make you eat more. It's not that the food was healthier by design. It was just boring. And boredom prevented overeating. When dinner is always meat and 3 veg, you stop eating when you're full because there's nothing exciting to tempt you into another serving. Today's endless variety and convenience foods keep us eating even after we're satisfied. They ate the same thing repeatedly and stopped when they'd had enough. Australia's relationship with heat is unique. Unlike Britain, most Australians didn't need indoor heating, but they faced the opposite challenge: scorching summers without air conditioning. Through the 1950s and most of the 1960s, domestic air conditioning simply didn't exist for average families. Hot homes meant your body worked constantly to cool itself down, burning calories in the process. There was no escape to climate-controlled comfort. You adapted, you sweated, your metabolism ran faster. Australians developed natural rhythms around the heat. Early morning activity before temperatures soared. Afternoon rest during the worst heat. evening activity once it cooled. Many people started their days at 5 or 6 a.m. doing physical work before the sun became unbearable. The outdoor lifestyle wasn't entirely by choice. Staying inside a hothouse was miserable, so people lived outdoors. Kids played outside all day. Adults did gardening in early morning or late evening. Families ate dinner on back verandas. The beach became an escape from heat, meaning more swimming, more walking, more activity. Research now suggests that constant exposure to comfortable temperatures contributes to obesity. When you're never too hot or too cold, your metabolism doesn't have to work to regulate body temperature. Australians didn't choose discomfort for health. They simply couldn't afford comfort. And that accidental discomfort kept them lean. Australia's surf culture exploded in the 1950s and 60s, becoming a defining part of national identity. With 90% of the population living along the coast, the beach wasn't a holiday destination. It was where you spent your free time. Every weekend. All summer. Beach culture meant constant activity. Swimming in the surf, surfing, beach cricket, volleyball, walking along the sand, kids building sandcastles, teenagers body surfing, adults swimming laps. None of this was called exercise. It was just what Australians did. Surf life-saving clubs became community centres. Ironman competitions weren't elite athlete events. They were local community competitions where regular people competed. Being fit enough to rescue someone from the surf was considered a civic responsibility. Beyond beaches, the outdoor lifestyle dominated. Backyard cricket was universal. Every kid played. Parks filled with families playing football, flying kites, having picnics that involved active games rather than sitting around eating. Tennis courts in every suburb were constantly booked. It's not just that people exercised more, it's that entertainment itself was physical. There was no Netflix, no gaming, no scrolling. Entertainment meant doing something with your body, usually outdoors, usually with other people. Today, our entertainment is predominantly sedentary. We sit to relax. They moved to have fun. That simple difference, moving for entertainment rather than sitting for it, changed everything. Australians ate 3 meals daily: breakfast, dinner at midday, and tea in the evening. That was it. The concept of snacking throughout the day simply didn't exist. You ate when meals happened. Between meals, you waited. Partly, this was cultural. Eating between meals was considered poor manners, a sign of greed or lack of self-control. Children who asked for food before dinner were told to wait. Adults didn't carry food around. Nobody ate while walking down the street or sitting at a desk. Partly, it was practical. Food cost money, a significant portion of the household budget. You didn't waste it on pointless nibbling. Biscuits existed, yes, but they appeared at specific times. Morning tea or afternoon tea, alongside a proper sit-down cuppa. Not whenever you felt like it. The snack food industry barely existed. No crisps aisle at the shop. No chocolate bars at every checkout. No vending machines, no protein bars, granola bars, muesli bars. No fruit pouches for kids. No individual servings of anything designed for eating on the go. When treats appeared, they were exactly that. Treats for special occasions. A chocolate bar at the pictures. An ice cream at the beach on a hot day. Lollies at Christmas. These weren't daily occurrences. They were memorable because they were rare. Today, the average Australian eats 5 or 6 times daily. We have entire supermarket aisles dedicated to snack foods that didn't exist 60 years ago. We eat in our cars, at our desks, while watching television, while walking around. We eat because we're bored, stressed, tired, or simply because food is there. The calories we consume from snacking alone would have fed a 1950s family for days. They ate 3 times and stopped. We eat constantly and wonder why we're never satisfied. The difference isn't just what we eat, it's that we never stop eating it. You ate what was in season and grown nearby. Nothing else existed. Strawberries appeared in summer, then vanished for 10 months. Tomatoes belonged to warm months. Root vegetables dominated winter. The idea of eating any fruit or vegetable at any time of year, flown from the other side of the planet, was pure fantasy. This created several accidental health benefits. First, diets naturally varied throughout the year. Different seasons brought different nutrients. Your body got variety, but slowly, not all at once. Summer meant lighter foods. Winter meant heartier vegetables. This matched what humans evolved eating. Second, food was dramatically fresher. Vegetables in shops were picked yesterday, maybe 2 days ago. Not 3 weeks ago in another country. Freshness meant higher nutrient content. Vitamins don't survive long storage. The lettuce your grandmother ate had more vitamins than the lettuce you eat today, simply because hers was picked locally that morning. Third, and perhaps most importantly, food spoiled quickly. This prevented overeating and waste. You bought what you needed for today because tomorrow it would be past its best. You couldn't stock up. You couldn't hoard. You ate what was fresh and available in reasonable quantities because that's all there was. Local food also meant understanding seasons. Children learned that you don't get oranges in summer, you don't get stone fruit in winter. This created patience and appreciation. When strawberries finally appeared after months without them, they were special. Today's year-round availability makes nothing special. The global food supply chain is a miracle of logistics. You can eat blueberries in winter and pumpkin in summer. But we lost the natural rhythm of eating with the seasons. We lost the understanding that food comes from somewhere specific at specific times. And we lost the built-in portion control that came from limited availability and quick spoilage. The dinner table was sacred. Every evening, the family gathered. Everyone sat down together. The meal had a clear beginning, middle, and end. No exceptions. This wasn't negotiable. It was simply how meals worked. There was no eating in front of the television, though many families didn't have one yet anyway. No eating in bedrooms. No eating while walking around the house. No grabbing food from the fridge whenever you felt like it. Meals happened at the table, at set times, with everyone present. Sunday was especially formal. The Sunday roast followed church. Extended family often joined, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins dressed in their Sunday best. The table was set with good linen and cutlery. The head of the household carved the meat at the table. Vegetables were passed around. Everyone helped themselves to reasonable portions because there needed to be enough for everyone. This structure prevented overeating in ways we've completely lost. When you eat at a table with others, the meal has natural boundaries. There's a moment when serving begins, a period of eating, a moment when plates are cleared and the meal ends. You can't mindlessly continue eating because the meal is definitively over. Research consistently shows that eating with others leads to consuming fewer calories than eating alone. When you eat mindfully at a table, you pay attention to what and how much you're eating. Social interaction slows down your eating speed, giving your brain time to register fullness. Compare that to today. We eat in our cars during commutes, we eat at our desks while working, we eat on the couch while watching television or scrolling phones, we eat in our bedrooms, we eat while standing at the kitchen counter, we eat whenever, wherever, however. Without structure, we've lost the natural stopping points. There's no clear end to the meal because the meal never really begins. We graze continuously, losing track of what and how much we've consumed. The television show doesn't end, so neither does the eating. The 1950s family wasn't trying to eat less. They simply ate in a structured way that naturally limited consumption. The ritual itself was the control mechanism, 13 habits. None of them complicated, none of them requiring special equipment or expensive memberships. Walk instead of drive. Cycle for transport. Grow some food. Cook from scratch. Stop snacking between meals. Eat seasonally, accept some physical discomfort. Take the stairs. Gather at the table. Keep some chickens if you're keen. Shop more frequently for fresh food. Eat smaller portions, even of meat. Structure your day around activity rather than convenience. Which of these old habits do you remember? Which ones have you tried to bring back into your own life? And which ones do you think made the biggest difference? Here's the uncomfortable truth. The 1950s, Australians weren't trying to be healthy. They weren't reading wellness blogs or following fitness influencers. They weren't conscious of any of this. These habits weren't choices, they were simply how life worked. We deliberately abandoned every single one of these habits in pursuit of convenience. We got what we wanted. Life is easier now, undeniably easier. But easier made us sick. Modern Australia offers unprecedented convenience, comfort, and choice. You can eat anything, anytime, from anywhere in the world. You can travel anywhere without walking. You can clean your home without physical effort. You can be entertained without moving from the couch. But our bodies evolved for a world where surviving required constant movement, where food was seasonal and scarce, where comfort had to be earned through physical work. We've eliminated the hardship but kept the hunger. We've removed the effort but maintained the appetite. The result? 2/3 of Australian adults are now overweight or obese. You can't turn back time. Nobody wants to hand wash laundry or live without air conditioning, but you can question whether every convenience actually improves your life. You can choose to walk sometimes, to cook sometimes, to eat at a table sometimes, to grow a few vegetables, to accept being slightly uncomfortable occasionally. The habits that kept old Australia healthy weren't special. They were just harder. And harder, it turns out, was exactly what our bodies needed.